This happened about a year and a half ago, on a night that still burned into my memory like a scar. I was living alone at the time in a quiet one-story home in a small rural town in western North Carolina. My house sat on 2 acres, backed by nothing but thick woods, with the nearest neighbor at least a quarter mile down the road. It was a stormy Friday night. I remember that because I had originally planned to go out, maybe grab dinner and see a movie, but the weather got worse. As the evening went on, thunder rolled in around 6, and by 8 p.m., the rain was pounding hard enough to drown out the TV by 10:30. I was curled up on the couch, watching a documentary and half asleep with my phone in one hand. The storm outside was relentless. Every few minutes, lightning would flash and light up the whole living room like a camera flash, followed by an earth-shaking boom of thunder. I don't scare easily, but even I was feeling the tension. Then it happened. A knock, but not on the front door. It came from the back. The back door, the one that led to the fenced-in yard and thick woods. It was a slow, deliberate knock. Not urgent, not panicked, just steady. 3 knocks, a pause, then nothing. I froze. No one ever used that door. I mean, there's no reason to. You'd have to either walk through the woods in the dark or come all the way around the back of the house. And with the rain, it'd be a mess. I muted the TV and sat there for a good 30 seconds, straining to listen. All I could hear was rain pelting the windows. I stood up, slowly, and crept to the kitchen, which has a view of the back door. I flipped the porch light on. No one there, at least not that I could see. I stared through the window for what felt like forever. Rain streaked down the glass, and the light buzzed above the door, casting a yellow cone on the muddy concrete. And then I saw them. Footprints, bare footprints, leading right up to the door. I stepped back instantly, heart pounding. Not boot prints, not sneakers. These were bare, as in barefoot, and deep, like someone had been standing there for a while. I ran to the front door and made sure it was locked, then checked every window, all locked. But the more I thought about it, the worse it got. If someone had walked barefoot through my yard during a storm to knock on my back door, where were they now? I grabbed my phone and went into the bathroom, the only room without a window. I called the county sheriff and told them what was happening. To their credit, they didn't waste time. An officer was at my place within 20 minutes. When he got there, I met him on the porch. He asked me questions: what time I heard the knock, if I'd seen anyone, if I had cameras. I didn't. He walked around the house with a flashlight while I stayed on the porch, clutching the knife I'd brought with me. He came back after a few minutes and said, "There's something strange about the prints." I asked what he meant. He said the prints didn't walk away. They led to the door. And that was it. No returning prints. No trail back into the woods. Just one set of muddy, bare feet that stopped at the door like someone had vanished into thin air. He walked the tree line behind my fence with a flashlight and said it looked like someone had stood out there, a patch where the grass was flattened, and the mud stirred up. But again, no trail leading away. I didn't sleep that night. The officer stayed for about 15 minutes more before telling me to call if anything else happened. The next morning, the rain had mostly washed the prints away, but I still saw faint outlines by the back door. I kept thinking about it, over and over. There was no reason anyone should have been back there, and no explanation for how the tracks ended where they did. That same week, I bought a camera for the back door, and every time it storms, I check. it religiously. Nothing's ever shown up again. But I still live there. And every now and then, when it rains like it did that night, I swear I hear that knock 3 times. Then silence. This happened to my cousin, Nate, last October, and honestly, it still messes with him. He doesn't like telling the story, and when he does, he's always looking over his shoulder halfway through. I'm going to tell it how he told me, word for word, as best I can. Nate lives out in Kansas, in a tiny town with more cornfields than streetlights. He works for a repair company that sends him all over the region to fix farming equipment. It's mostly long drives on empty roads, and small talk with old guys in overalls. This particular night, he had a job about 2 hours out. Some combine had broken down, and by the time he finished up, it was already past 11:00. It had been raining for most of the evening. Not hard, but steady. The kind of cold, persistent drizzle that just soaks everything and makes the world look like it's underwater. He was about halfway home, driving along a state road that cuts through nothing but farmland for miles. It was pitch black, aside from his headlights. The sky was just clouds and fog. You couldn't even see stars. Then, up ahead, something caught his eye. A figure standing in the field, just off the shoulder. At first, he thought it was a scarecrow. Then it moved. It was a woman wearing what looked like a long, white dress, barefoot, soaked head to toe. She stood still, just a few feet into the tall grass, arms by her sides, staring straight at the road. Straight at him. Nate slowed down, thinking maybe she needed help. Maybe she'd been in an accident or something. But she didn't wave. She didn't call out. She didn't move at all. And then, when he was almost even with her, she smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not even a creepy one. Just empty. Like her face was trying to remember what smiling was supposed to look like. He didn't stop. He hit the gas and kept driving. The weird part, when he looked in his rearview mirror, she was gone. Not walking away. Not fading into the dark. Just gone. He told himself it was a trick of the light, or maybe his eyes playing with shadows in the fog. But he was rattled. He turned the radio off, started breathing heavier, and gripped the steering wheel a little too tight. 5 minutes later, it got worse. She was there again, standing on the opposite side of the road, this time same dress, same bare feet, same dripping, wet hair, and still staring, still smiling. Nate slammed on the gas. His hands were shaking now. He said it felt like the air inside the truck dropped 20 degrees. Like he could see his breath even though the heater was on. He drove another 10 minutes before he felt safe enough to slow down. And that's when his phone buzzed. It was a notification from his dashcam app. The camera had picked up motion and auto-saved the clip. He didn't watch it. Not right away. He was too freaked out. When he finally pulled into his driveway back home, it was nearly 1 o'clock in the morning. The rain had stopped, but everything was still soaked. He ran inside and locked every door before finally checking the footage it showed. The road, the fields, the shoulder, and there she was. But not where he'd seen her. She was closer, way closer. She wasn't in the field. She was on the side of the road, right next to the truck. The frame only caught her for a second as the headlights flashed by, but Nate swears her eyes were open wide, like bulging, and she wasn't just watching him, she was mouthing something. He paused it, watched it again. He swears she was saying, "Don't stop." Nate deleted the footage, not because he was scared someone would see it, but because he was terrified he'd look at it again. He says every time it rains now, especially at night, he avoids that road. But sometimes, even on the safe ones, he swears he sees her, just standing, watching. This happened to me a few years ago, when I took a month-long freelance photography job in Portland, Oregon. I didn't know the area well and needed a temporary place to stay that wouldn't eat my entire paycheck. So, like an idiot, I used Craigslist. I found a listing that looked decent. A basement room for rent, private entrance, furnished, laundry access, $500 for the month. Way too cheap for the area, but the guy said he was just looking for someone quiet and respectful. I was both. The man who owned the house was in his 50s, maybe early 60s, kind of soft-spoken, clean-cut. He gave off the vibe of someone who used to be a teacher, or a park ranger. Not threatening, just quiet. When I got there, it was raining hard. Sheets of cold Pacific Northwest rain hitting the windshield and fog rolling low over the streets. The house was tucked into a wooded neighborhood, almost invisible from the road. Very little lighting. The guy greeted me at the door and showed me around. The place looked lived in, but clean. He barely made eye contact, but he wasn't creepy or anything, just awkward. Said his name was Frank. The basement room was surprisingly nice. It had a small bed, a desk, a TV with a DVD player, and a private bathroom. It even had a little kitchenette area with a microwave and a mini fridge. The first few nights were fine. I'd come home after shooting, grab something from the fridge, edit photos, then crash early. I didn't really see Frank much after that first day. He stayed upstairs. I stayed in the basement. On the fourth night, it started raining again, harder than before. I remember lying in bed around 2 a.m., trying to fall asleep, when I heard something knocking, but not on the door. On the wall, at first, I thought it was the plumbing or maybe the foundation creaking from the weather. But then, it came again. 4 knocks, evenly spaced, like someone tapping with their knuckles. I sat up in bed, heart suddenly racing. The sound had come from behind the bookshelf near the far corner of the room. The wall behind it backed up to a dirt embankment, so there shouldn't be anything back there. I got up slowly, turned on the light, and walked over. I pressed my ear against the wall. Nothing, just the soft hiss of rain outside. Then knock, 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 knock. I jumped back. I wish I was exaggerating, but it felt like the sound had come from just inches away, right behind the drywall. Called out, "Hello." I don't know why, like I expected someone to answer. Nothing. I stood there, frozen. I don't remember how long I stayed like that, but eventually, I convinced myself it had to be something with the pipes. I moved the shelf back against the wall, turned off the lights, and got back into bed. 10 minutes later, the knocking started again. Same spot, same rhythm for knocks, then silence. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the bed with the light on and stared at that wall until the sun came up. In the morning, I went upstairs to tell Frank what happened. He was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee. No phone, no laptop. Just staring out the window at the rain. I said, "Hey, do you know if there's anything behind that wall in the basement? I kept hearing this knocking last night." I thought, it might be the pipes or something. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "That wall's just dirt on the other side." I nodded and started to ask again, but then he added, "If you're going to leave, you should do it today. The rain's only going to get worse." I didn't even respond. I just went downstairs, packed my stuff, and left. I got a motel near downtown for the rest of the job. It was overpriced and smelled like bleach, but I didn't care. I needed to be somewhere with people, somewhere with front desks and working phones. That same night, curiosity got the better of me. I googled the address. Nothing came up at first, just some rental listings. Then I checked local news archives. That's when I found it. 3 years earlier, a woman had gone missing from that exact address. She had been renting the basement room while attending school in the area. Her name was Anna Prescott. Disappeared without a trace. Police never found a body. No signs of struggle. They questioned the homeowner, same guy, Frank, but nothing ever came of it. The case went cold. I never went back, never contacted him, never spoke to anyone about it until now. I still have nightmares sometimes, not about the knocking, but about what might have happened if I knocked back. I used to think there was nothing more peaceful than living in the middle of nowhere. No traffic, no noise, no one bothering you, just land, trees, wind, and sky. But peace can turn into isolation really quick. And isolation, that's where things get dangerous. Because once you're far enough from other people, there's no one around to tell you what's real and what's not. I live about 2 hours from the nearest town, on an old family farm in the Midwest. It's been in our family for 3 generations, and I inherited it 5 years ago after my dad passed. It's got about 40 acres of mostly overgrown land, a main house, a couple of barns, and an old grain silo that hasn't been used in decades. The silo is what this story is about. I'd barely thought about it most of my life. It's this big rusting cylinder about 30 feet tall, standing off to the side of one of the back fields. No one ever went in there, and as far as I knew, it was empty. My dad always said it was unsafe, that the ladder was rusted and the roof could collapse. So we left it alone. This all started last fall. I'd just finished a long day repairing one of the tractors and was sitting on the porch, drinking a beer and watching the sunset. The fields were golden and quiet. That's when I noticed something strange, way out by the silo. Someone was standing there. They were leaning against it, or maybe standing just in front of it. From that far away, I couldn't make out anything except the shape. A tall, dark figure. At first, I thought maybe it was a trespasser, or someone passing through the woods. But I didn't hear any cars, and there's no road back there. I stood up and walked to the edge of the porch for a better look. Gone. I don't mean they ran off. I mean in the time it took me to take 5 steps. The shape was gone. I chalked it up to shadows. Maybe a tree branch, or one of the fence posts. Looked like a person from a distance. Still, I went out the next day to check. I took the ATV and rode out to the silo. It was just as I remembered. Rusty, old, with a dented side. I opened it. Nothing inside. Just the hollow metal smell. Some old hay and spiders. I went back home and didn't think about it again. For a while. A few nights later, I was in bed when I woke up around 2 a.m. I don't know why. No dreams, no noise that I could remember. I got up to grab some water, and on my way back through the hallway, I passed by the window. I stopped. Because out there, way out in the dark, barely visible under the moonlight, someone was standing by the silo again. This time, it wasn't a shape. I could see them, tall, skinny dot just, standing there, not moving. I stared for maybe 20 seconds. Then I blinked, gone. I stayed up the rest of the night. Sat in the living room with the lights off and a shotgun across my lap, just watching the backfield through the window. Nothing else happened. In the morning, I went out again. No footprints. Nothing unusual. That whole week, I didn't sleep much. I kept looking out the windows every hour, walking around the house at night with a flashlight. One night, I finally decided to install trail cams. I had 2 spares from when I'd tried hunting on the backside of the property. I set one up, aimed directly at the silo, and another one deeper in the woods behind it, just in case someone was sneaking in from that way. 3 nights passed. Nothing on the cameras. No motion, no wildlife, not even wind. But then on the 4th night, I checked the footage from the silo cam. At exactly 3:03 a.m., the footage cut out. Just static dot for 10 minutes. Then it came back, like nothing had happened. I checked the other camera. Same thing. 3:03 a.m. to 3:13 a.m. Nothing but static. And here's the part that made my skin crawl. When the footage comes back, you can see the door to the silo is slightly open. I went out there with my shotgun just after noon. The door was shut. Padlock still in place. Untouched. But when I walked around the side, I found something I hadn't noticed before. Boot prints. Just one set, barely visible in the dirt and leaves. They led up to the back of the silo and stopped. No prints going back, no drag marks, no signs of anyone leaving. Like whoever it was, walked up to the silo and disappeared. I should have called the sheriff. I know that now. But it's a small town, and I didn't want them thinking I was losing it. The next night, I set an alarm for 2:50 a.m. I wanted to be up to watch the cams in real time. I sat at the table with the laptop, streaming the feed from both cameras side by side. At exactly 3:03, the feeds cut out. Not static this time, just black. As if someone had covered the lenses. Then, from outside, not the silo dot the barn, I froze. There shouldn't have been anyone there. I hadn't been in the barn for days. I grabbed the shotgun, turned off all the lights, and slipped out the front door. The air was dead quiet. No wind, no crickets, just silence. I crept toward the barn. The doors were slightly ajar. I raised the gun and kicked them open. Nothing. The inside was empty. Just old tools. I did a full sweep. Even checked the rafters. Nothing. But when I stepped back outside, the silo door was wide open. It had been locked when I went to bed. I pointed my flashlight toward it and walked slowly across the yard. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to go back. But I couldn't. I had to know. When I got to the silo, the inside was pitch black. I aimed the light in. There were footprints in the dust spresh, going in and up the ladder. That same old rusted ladder my dad always said was unsafe. I aimed the flashlight up. The beam hit the underside of the silo roof, and for a second, something crawling. But then my light flickered and died. I ran. I don't even remember crossing the yard. I just remember slamming the front door, locking every bolt, and sitting on the floor. That morning, I did what I should have done earlier. I called the sheriff. They came out, did a full search, checked the silo, the barn, the woods. Didn't find anything. No signs of forced entry. No prints. No one hiding inside. They told me to install more lights, maybe put up a gate. That was 2 weeks ago. And ever since then, I keep waking up at 3:03 a.m. Every single night, even when I don't set an alarm, even when I go to bed at midnight. My eyes just open. Sometimes I hear creaking, sometimes knocking, but I've never opened the door. Not yet. And here's the part that's been keeping me awake lately. I finally replaced the batteries in the trail cams and left them running again. The footage now doesn't cut out, it plays through. But at 3:03 a.m., every night, the figure is back, standing outside the silo, looking directly at the camera, and he's not alone anymore. When I say he's not alone anymore, I don't mean there's a group of people huddled out there. I wish that's all it was. No, what I saw in that footage, I can't explain it. There's him, the tall man who always stood still before, but now he's turned slightly, like he's looking over his shoulder. Behind him, standing maybe 10 feet farther out in the field, are others. At least 3 of them. No lights, no flash. They just fade into view like they've always been there, standing dead still in the dark. No faces, just outlines, just shapes, and all of them are facing my house. I didn't sleep for 2 days after I saw that. I just sat on the living room floor with a shotgun between my knees and the trail cam footage on loop, trying to tell myself it was fake, some sort of malfunction. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. That was 2 nights ago. Last night, I moved a recliner into the hallway, the one with a clear line of sight to the back windows. I sat there with the lights off, listening. At exactly 3:03 a.m., the motion sensor, light above the barn, flicked on. Just the barn dot, not the house, not the yard. I didn't move. I couldn't. Then something scraped against the side of the house. Slow, long, metallic. Like the edge of a tool being dragged along the siding. And then, tapping on the window behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My hands were frozen around the shotgun. I could feel sweat pouring down my back. The tapping stopped. Then nothing. Just the rain. Yes, it was raining again. I hadn't even noticed when it started. But by then, it was pouring. I stayed in that chair until dawn, not even blinking. When it was finally light enough to see outside, I ran room to room. Every window was intact, every door locked. But when I went outside to check the side of the house, there were marks, scratches in the siding, deep and uneven, like something had dragged metal across it. I packed a bag that morning. I don't know why I hadn't left already. Stubbornness. Maybe. Pride. Maybe I thought I could protect what was mine. But the second I saw those marks, I knew this wasn't something I could chase away with a shotgun. I tossed the bag in my truck, locked the house, and drove to town. I stayed at a friend's place that night, just some distance, just one night, to breathe, and it helped. I actually slept for the first time in almost a week. But when I got up the next morning, my truck was unlocked. There was mud on the driver's side floor, and something had been placed on the seat. A photograph old, faded black and white. It showed the silo my silo. There were no trees around it, and no barns yet. Looking up and above him at the top of the silo, something was peeking out over the edge. Long ones. I dropped the photo. I didn't even pick it back up. I drove straight to the sheriff's office, told them everything, showed them the trail cam footage, the scratches, the photos. They didn't laugh, but they also didn't have much to say. The sheriff, old guy named Hobbs, said he remembered hearing stories as a kid, that the silo had a bad reputation back in the day, that farmhands used to dare each other to climb it on Halloween, he said to kids. Disappeared there, back in the 70s, but it was never investigated. People just said they'd run off, but I could see it in his face. He remembered, and he believed me. He told me not to go back alone. I didn't listen. I had to see it one more time. I drove back to the property around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Brought a crowbar, flashlight, camera, and a GoPro. I don't know what I thought I'd find. Maybe I wanted proof. Maybe I wanted to face it. The silo looked the same as always. Rusted, still, quiet, but the door was open, wide open, like it had been waiting. I stepped inside. The air was cold, colder than it should have been for fall, and thick, like breathing in damp concrete. I aimed my flashlight up. The ladder looked the same, rusted, but I could see something on the upper platform, like a bundle of fabric. I climbed slowly. Step by step, the metal creaked under my weight. At the top, I reached the small metal catwalk. The thing I'd seen wasn't fabric. It was hair. Long, M-A-T-E, black, and beneath it, bones, small, child-sized, arranged carefully in a circle, and in the center, a shoe, tiny worn. It was pointing upward. I don't remember getting back down. I don't remember getting back in the truck. I just remember waking up the next day on my couch. Muddy, cold. The cams were gone. The footage wiped. The photos missing. All I had left was that photograph, the one they left in my truck. It's been a month. I don't go near the silo anymore. I chained it shut, boarded it up, even covered it with a tarp. It doesn't matter. Every night, 3:03 a.m., I still wake up. Sometimes I hear them moving in the fields. Sometimes I hear the tapping. And twice, I've heard them whispering. It's never loud, just soft, like wind through the grass. But I know what they're saying. I finally figured it out after all these weeks. They're not after me. They're inviting me. They want me to come up, to stand at the top, to look out the way the boy did, the way they all did. The man who watched from the silo was never alone. And now, neither am I. Subscribe now for more true horror stories, and don't forget to hit the bell.